Hi everyone, thank you for taking your time out on a lovely sunny evening to come and listen to us speak. You've heard from lots of healthcare professionals and people who have been campaigning on the front line, and I think a lot of you who are here tonight are here because you're aware that there's a problem. You're aware that there's some issues in the NHS. A lot of you may have even visited A&E departments or GPs recently and have seen that for yourself. And you've seen the headlines, the humanitarian crisis, according to the Red Cross, staffing crisis, A&Es closing down. And I think it's quite important for us as doctors, healthcare workers, nurses, to really cut through the spin and to be able to talk in real discernible facts about what is going on in the NHS. And what I would like to say is that this is not scaremongering. These headlines are not exaggerating. I am telling you, the NHS faces extinction, and it is facing the biggest crisis we have ever seen since 1948. And I want to talk about the three main processes that are bringing that about and tell you a little bit about the human cost of that, as Bob has highlighted. So, first of all, cuts. So the NHS is currently undergoing the biggest squeeze of funding in its entire history. Don't listen to what Jeremy Hunt and Theresa May are saying. They're putting record levels into the NHS. It is absolute rubbish. As a proportion of GDP, it is plummeting. So that's leading to record numbers of staffing gaps. 50,000 according to the Parliamentary Select Committee in June last year. That will be more this year. So there are thousands of doctors not in posts. Let me tell you what that means. I'm a cancer specialist trainee. I look after patients going through probably the hardest diagnosis that anyone could ever hear, cancer. Get them through chemotherapy, their radiotherapy. If I turn up to work and I had 20 patients before, and there's a doctor now missing on that day, that post is not filled, I have to take on their workload, 20 more patients. Everyone has their own history, their own set of blood tests, their own CT scans, their own investigations, their own family, their own fears, their own wishes, that I have to then take on and see within the same amount of time. Guess what happens to the quality of the care that I can provide? It goes right down, and I'm handcuffed. And I feel deficient in the care I can provide. Cuts to hospital beds and closures, number 2. We have seen record numbers of hospital closures, probably about 1 in 10, 1 in 11, since 2010. And there is a rationale for closing some beds and treating more things closer to home, is what they're telling you. But there's a line when it becomes dangerous. Now, you cannot treat cancer at home. You cannot treat a stroke or a heart attack or neutropenic sepsis or life-threatening infections at home. That needs a hospital bed. And there aren't enough currently. So what does that mean? I have been on the phone with cancer patients who have had chemotherapy and they've got life-threatening complications, temperature, problems breathing. Some of them at risk of paralysis. They need to come into hospital. They are begging for me to come into hospital, and I have to turn them away. So they're forcing the staff to act out their disastrous policies. And the last thing, the last huge process that's contributing to this crisis is the privatisation. You've already heard a lot from Bob about the ins and outs, but I just want to paint a human picture for you. If you've got a certain pot of money and it goes directly to drugs, beds, nurses, doctors, it's very efficient, it's very accountable, it's direct. If you then break that up and you make little pots fight against each other for that money, you then introduce competition and you get associated processes like competitive tendering. You need commissioning services. You need managers to oversee that. You need independent regulators. You need the administrative staff to support that. You need corporate lawyers to draw up the contracts. You need publicity, you need advertising, okay? This is all the waste of money. And I tell you what it means in the cancer services that I have seen. When G4S, the company that hugely messed up with the Olympic security, took over elective transport, so they are driving the elderly and the infirm, the disabled into hospital. When they took over, I was seeing patients turning up hours late for their chemotherapy, devastated, in tears. Sometimes they miss their appointments for life-saving treatment. This is the human cost to privatisation. So I'm sorry to depress you, but I think unless we realise how bad things have got, we won't do what is necessary. But I am very proud to work in the NHS. I'm very proud to be able to deliver care, unlike most countries in the world. As a doctor, I can choose to provide care based on clinical need, not based on an insurance premium, yet. So a group of doctors and nurses who are proud to work in the NHS have set up something called the NHS Roadshow to try and get the message out about what is happening, encourage people to vote for their NHS, not against their own interests. Because, to be honest, when they're trying to take away that as something that's so precious to all of us, it is one of Britain's greatest achievements, you can be damn sure we are going to fight for it. So join the fight with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions?